Insurance, it isn't the sexy industry that people want to go into, but I think it should be seen as a good career path.
So what would you say are the common misconceptions that people would have about insurance underwriting?
When you think of insurance, you think of house and car, because that's your personal experience with it. With the development of apprenticeships and qualifications now within the industry, I think it should be an attractive sector to look at. We've got better over the years as we've developed the business of specialising, and we can now be confident and go, this is where we specialise, and we'll turn stuff away that doesn't quite fit that. So particularly with AI developing as it has, we're seeing more and more ChatGPT related questions, and they've gone, can you answer these for me, without any concept of why they're asking them questions. So that's a challenge we're trying to overcome at the minute. Biggest selling point for a cyber insurance policy is the support you'll get in an incident. So you can pick up the phone and have someone answer straight away.
And in terms of RiskBox, what does the future look like for you guys?
We want to continue to grow the business organically.
Today I'm joined by Sam, one of the directors at RiskBox. Sam, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to have the invite.
Oh, you're welcome. So you joined RiskBox in 2017, is that correct?
Yeah, sounds about right. I think it was my 9th year this year. So yeah,
nice.
Coming up to a decade at RiskBox.
Cool. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of led you in your journey towards RiskBox? What was you doing before that made you kind of think, okay, this is where I want to be now, and this is what's led you to where you are currently?
Yeah, I think there's a common sort of conception and exception in insurance that no one wants to be in insurance. So you don't grow up as a kid going, I tell you what, I really want to be an underwriter or a broker. So I'm not going to go away and say, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. It was very much happened by chance. Mike, who set up RiskBox, and the other director, he set up RiskBox after working in insurance for a number of years. He was my football manager at the time.
Okay.
Set up RiskBox. We were on a team night out somewhere after a couple of beers, and he sort of said, I'd like to hire you when I'm ready. So we had this chat, and then literally stuck to his word. A little bit of time later, he came back and said, right, I'm ready now. And I became the first employee at that point. I'd had a few office jobs in various things. Nothing really took to my fancy. I tried doing accountancy exams, got through those. Again, didn't really take to what I wanted. So then this opportunity arisen, and I like Mike. I've got a lot of respect for him, and he offered me an opportunity that, yeah, I wanted to take and jump into.
Nice. That's a very nice, interesting way to kind of join a career, given that it wasn't something that you had expected.
No, not at all. I mean, I'd like to help promote the industry as well. So insurance, yeah, it isn't the sexy industry that people want to go into, but I think it should be seen as a good career path or a career option. So people do go to university and go, I want to be a solicitor, I want to be an accountant. I think insurance is a profession that is something that should be attractive, but getting that out there is a challenge for the industry because it seems quite boring.
So what would you say are the kind of common misconceptions that people would have about insurance underwriting? Someone who knows nothing about it that would assume
I think
this
it's
is
just
the stereotype.
a little bit unknown. So when you think of insurance, you might be the same. You think of house and car because that's your personal experience with it. But when you run a business, and we only do commercial, so I don't particularly like motor insurance. I hate doing my motor insurance. But where it comes to business insurance, that's where I enjoy that aspect of it. But people going into it, it's just never promoted in the same way as other things. And I think with the development of apprenticeships and qualifications now within the industry, I think it should be an attractive sector to look at. It's just promoting it as an opportunity. That's the main thing.
Nice. And what sort of sectors do you cover? Do you cover an array, or you guys kind of narrowed in and focus on a particular subset?
Yeah, so we do niche. So again, I get back to, we don't like doing a lot of motor. It's just not what we enjoy. So again, we go on the terminology of insurance can be quite boring. So we'll do and look after people who do interesting things. So for us, we've got better over the years as we've developed the business of specialising, and we can now be confident and go, this is where we specialise, and we'll turn stuff away that doesn't quite fit that. For us, tech and media are two real specialisms, and we do a lot in the event, leisure, and sort of immersive type spaces as well. There are stuff outside of that, and they're quite wide-ranging sort of sectors, but that's where we'll really focus on what I enjoy as well.
Nice. So when you're working with tech and media companies, are there any conversations that you have with them that almost triggers a light bulb moment in which they didn't understand about insurance prior to having those conversations?
Yeah, I think tech and media businesses, their owners sort of set up a passion project most of the time. So they'll see something that's not quite right in the industry and they want to develop it, or they want to do something slightly different. And we're not under the impression that insurance is their top priority, because it's definitely not. They want to run a business and be creative and create something new and interesting and make loads of money. So we have to go in there and a little bit of education piece, but make it as simple as possible for them as well, because whilst they don't know it yet, insurance is a really important part of their journey, because if something does go wrong, you want to be able to rely on that piece of paper that you bought for X amount of pounds all that time ago. So we just try and make it as a simple, streamlined process, whilst getting into what the business does and what it's protecting, and then ensuring they know what they are or aren't covered for. So
I think I read on your website, you guys take pride in decoding documents.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah. So
you guys are kind of taking complex policies and translating it into a way that people understand. So if somebody approaches you and says, look, this policy seems great, but can you just break it down to me? What am I actually covered for? How would you kind of, digest that into a manageable chunk for somebody that's not interested in reading, cover to end of the policy?
Yeah, it's quite a challenge, and we always have to lean back to everything's in your wording, but we'll break it down as much as possible. So we're fully independent, so we're not tied to any particular insurer, but because we niche, we're not going to access every insurer, because there's only certain ones that suit the clients of our specialisms. So we've got to know those policy wordings and what that insurer is like and how they respond to certain things. So it's our job to do that and then relay that to our clients as well in a way that they'll understand. Because insurers sometimes, whilst they try and put things in plain English, and there's a duty to make things accessible and all that, which they are taking steps towards, the industry's not got a set standard for how they'll define things. So, for example, cyber, which we'll come on to, the terminology is different between every insurer. So trying to say, yes, you're covered for this, but here's why it's better here is sometimes a bit of a challenge for brokers, not just us, but just the broker community as a whole.
Right. So just kind of tapping onto that. So your role is primarily as like a broker. So you'd basically pair your clients or customers, what you call them?
Either's fine. I mean, clients, customers, that's who we look after.
So you'd pair them with the most appropriate insurer, essentially.
Yeah. So our role is effectively to understand the business, present it to insurers in the best way, and then make a recommendation on which insurer is the best solution for our client at that stage, and then give them various options in terms of coverage limits, etc.
Cool. When you are, presenting the customers to the different insurers, are there any things that customers can do that almost influence the cost of the premium? So what I'm asking here is, like, if a company has done things like Cyber Essentials Plus, ISO 27001, do these kind of things potentially impact the rate at which they'll be charged, or are these things kind of surplus to requirement when actually underwriting a quote?
Depends. So loose answer. If you're a micro or SME business looking to get cyber insurance in this instance, insurers don't usually ask the question. So if you're looking for a relatively low limit, you're a small business with limited data exposure and limited to no US exposure, you can get a quote without much information, i.e. some insurers will just use a domain and that's it. Minimum security requirements, usually just multi-factor authentication on like email accounts, and that is it. You can get a quote, and I've seen some as cheap as 150 quid for a year. and it's providing really good cover. As you get to more complex risks where, there is a data exposure, or they've got higher turnover, more employees, bigger US exposure, then yes, things like that come into play. Some cyber essentials will just give an automatic discount of a certain percent. Some don't even ask the question or care. When you get to the more complex risks though, ISO and things like that definitely play a factor into how underwriters will review that risk. But it just depends. So a lot of the time we can get quotes for even businesses up to £50 million turnover without a proposal form. It's just a few yes or no answers and a domain scan, and that's it.
So what would a domain scan kind of consist of? Because this is interesting.
Yeah, so it's been a development. I think insurers are trying to prevent claims now just as much as providing the insurance around it. So what we're seeing more and more is that they've got so much data. Like they're buying it from all parties. They've got access to relationships with the police and action fraud and things like that, and the government. And they've got all this claim data of how claims occur, what happens afterwards. So the more they can do to use that data and prevent is better for everyone involved. So the domain scan will effectively is we put their domain into a portal, and they'll run what's called a non-intrusive scan. They'll then provide us with a report and highlight any vulnerabilities that have been found. They'll use claim benchmarking around different things. And some will be false positives, some will be really high critical vulnerabilities that people need to fix. And we can give that report to our clients as we quote and go, here's the quote, but also here's some vulnerabilities that insurers have found that you need to try and fix. And here's access to experts if you need to try and help you through that process as well. So I think it's an interesting step. And I think it'll develop over time as well, because we've seen some insurers do it proactively throughout the year as well. So they'll continuously monitor the network effectively. And as they find vulnerabilities throughout the policy period, they'll tell you and say, here's how to fix it.
That's pretty cool.
It's a good defense mechanism for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that's helping with their own kind of vulnerability management if they don't have, vulnerability management program in place themselves. So yeah, it's a win-win situation there, because the insurer obviously doesn't want to have to deal with a claim and make a payout. And obviously the organization doesn't want to have a vulnerability exposed. So
yeah, I think it makes it sticky as well. So if you're seeing that as a benefit for a policyholder, you're more likely to renew with that insurer. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of insurers in the market to get more cyber business on board. So if they can make it sticky business where they see benefits from the premium they pay as a proactive service, then why not? And it prevent claims so they don't pay out. So win-win.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about what you've just been saying, because it seems like you have a very hands-on approach in terms of speaking to your clients and then communicating this information that you gather from your clients to potential insurers, and then from that getting the feedback and then presenting the quotes to your clients for them to make a decision. So why do you do all of this instead of taking an approach like a comparison website where people just put their own details in and then they get one of 10 choices to select from? Obviously you guys are doing things completely different to that. So what's the logic behind that? Yeah,
I mean, businesses can go online and get a quote for themselves directly, but they've not got the understanding of whether the product's very good or not. We offer an advised sale, so we'll give a recommendation on what we think is best for that business. And insurance is a bit of a journey. So as you grow a business, your insurance needs will change throughout that period. And if you're direct with an insurer, they can't give you advice or recommendations. They can only say what their product does and what it doesn't do. Whereas we can go, actually, you've hit this milestone now, so this might not be the best insurer for you. Let's move you to this other one who can do this, and this that's right for your next step. And that's where I like getting involved, because you can help the business grow and keep it secure as it grows. So we'll see a tech business win a new client, and they've got insurance requirements within that contract, and we can help them meet that requirement so they're complying with that contract and they can sleep easy at night, which is the main thing.
That's really good actually, because I never thought of that. 'Cause, yeah, if you go to market and you win a new contract and then there are requirements, that could be a very daunting challenge in order to then find a new policy in order to satisfy those requirements. So at least they've got people like yourself in order to help simplify that process.
Yeah, we really push that because yes, it can help them stay secure and protected and meet the contract requirements. But the main thing for us is we don't want to spend unnecessarily on insurance as well. Mm-hmm. So we've seen MSAs or contracts where they've got really high limit requirements. And we're a big believer that if you can speak to us first rather than just sign on the dotted line and then speak to us afterwards, you may be able to negotiate those limits and not have to spend so much more money on insurance where it's maybe not required. It might be over and above what you need at that point. So if we can help you negotiate at that point, that's beneficial because, again, you don't have to spend extra money when you don't need to. And it helps your profit margins.
When you're kind of speaking to customers, clients about potentially taking out a cyber policy, are there any sort of red flags that you look out for when you think that this could be a risk for your partners as insurers if you were to kind of push this client forward to be paired with an insurer because they're not necessarily taking their obligations in terms of protection or mitigation of risk or risk reduction seriously? They're just saying, oh yeah, we need cyber insurance policy, but that's it. We need it because we need to be covered. But they're not talking about the things that they're proactively doing in order to reduce the chance of there being an event or an incident.
Yeah, I think there's two things. We see some inquiries where they've had an incident and then respond to it afterwards when they realise, oh, it could have been bad that. And then they'll try and take out cyber insurance. Red flags for us is when they don't know certain things. So they don't know if they've got MFA or they don't know how much personally identifiable data they've got or why they collect it. They're not great indicators of good management of data and businesses. Sometimes it'll be the person we speak to doesn't know, but they'll need to speak to their CTO or someone else in the team. That's fine. But sometimes it is a case of they just don't know what controls are in place. But then it's for us to educate them a little bit on why that's really important and help them through what insurers like to see as good risk management as well. Because sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, and then whether we can give some assistance or someone like you can, then that's beneficial for sure.
Thanks. That's insightful. Where do you often see a gap when speaking to customers where they assume that there's something that's covered within their policy, but it's actually not? They just had the assumption. Is there something that keeps like reoccurring when you're having these conversations with people?
Not reoccurring. Sometimes it's just a case of we get some random questions now. So particularly with AI developing as it has, we see more and more ChatGPT related questions. It's very clear that they are just stuck into AI, and they've come out with 20 questions and they've gone, can you answer these for me, without any concept of why they're asking them questions. So that's a challenge we're trying to overcome at the minute. For us, in terms of whether something's covered or whether it's not covered, we do try and speak to our clients as much as possible. So when we quote, we'll always go, we'd like to chat this through with you just so you understand what isn't covered. Sometimes a standard US or Canadian contractual jurisdiction isn't covered. So again, we try and make that clear, but it depends on the risk and everything around it.
So there's probably thousands of businesses that have no cyber insurance, right? So what would be a early indicator that a business may be underestimating their cyber exposure? So maybe this is something that they should consider. Okay, actually, this could be a problem for us. We should speak to somebody like yourself in order to take out the appropriate policies, because a lot of people will probably be naive and just think, why do I need cyber? Why do I need any sort of cyber insurance? My business is only doing this or only doing that. Yeah,
I think it's education. I think the press have done a good job of highlighting some big stories. So M&S, Harrods, Jaguar Land Rover were 3 big cyber attacks in 2025. That's great, but the person who owns an SME business doesn't see how that relates to them. So for us, we've been through quite a lot of cyber claims now, ranging from an employee clicking a link that they shouldn't have done and spamming out malware to lots of people, or really serious ransomware attacks where cyber extortion has come into play and the business is on its knees at that point. So it is education. For us, we're quite lucky that because we work in the space we do, people are a little bit more digitally aware. So they're aware that they've got a bit more of an exposure to cyber risk. And then for us, it's a case of just explaining that whilst it's cyber and data, as we call it, the risk varies per business. So if you've got a lot of data, then yes, your data risk is the biggest part. But if you're not holding a lot of data, it might be the business interruption element, so the time that you're down during an incident. But for me, it's the biggest, I hate the term, but selling point for a cyber insurance policy is the support you'll get in an incident. So you can pick up the phone and have someone answer straight away and be able to go, yeah, we can get you some legal experts, some forensic IT consultants, some PR experts, all to help you manage this situation and pick it up really, really quickly. And that's, yeah, there's a pot of money, but that's the biggest draw, I'd say, for a cyber policy.
So I just want to tap onto what you just said there about the phishing emails and the malware incidents, ransomware incidents, sorry. So if an organization was to experience something like this, a ransomware attack, for instance, how important are the first 24 hours for that organization to respond? And what does that sort of 24 hours look like from your part when you're having these conversations?
Really important. So the quicker you can act on it, the better, because you can reduce hopefully the longevity of whatever's happening. What our advice is that the main thing is it's going to be really stressful. It's going to consume your next, whether it's 2 days, 3 days, week, month, whatever it is. It's going to take over a lot of your time. So you're going to be distracted from running your business to dealing with this. So for us, the key thing is if you have cyber insurance, don't try and deal with it yourself. Get on the phone to your cyber insurers straight away. We are quite clear in that we don't recommend a product that's not got at least 24/7 response. So whatever time of day it is, night, Christmas Day, anytime, you can pick up the phone and be confident that your cyber insurers are there to support you at that time. So don't try and figure it out yourself. Get on the phone. Ideally, as you mature of a business, you'd want to have a sort of business continuity plan or disaster recovery plan. Again, as bad as it sounds, have a printed version, because if you can't access your network, then have a copy in your office, at home, wherever. And it's really important you follow those steps and notify the right people.
Interesting. Thank you. Just tapping on that again, what would you say are the most common sort of claims that you're seeing at the moment from people? So is there sort of like a trend on what seems to be the most common problem that people are encountering?
I think cyber's growing. It's not the most common claim that we'll experience as a broker for tech and digital businesses. We're still seeing professional indemnity more prominent, but for cyber it is definitely growing area. And people probably suffer incidents where they should report to the ICO and don't, because again they'll just go, oh, it's fine, we didn't really do anything, and is what it is. But for us, cyber's not the main claim area, but when claims happen, they are expensive. So I think I mentioned that click a link and malware spammed out, that was a £50,000 claim. Because of the legals, the forensics, all that stuff that happened, all the notifications you have to do, all that steps, it's an expensive claim.
And with like the ransomware one, have you ever had any incidents where somebody's actually ended up paying the ransom note? Is that something that a insurer would pay out, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a bit of a grey area. So ransoms, I think, will develop over time, so it's not insurable. because you're effectively funding criminal activity, potentially funding terrorism, all that stuff.
That's an incentive for them to do it again, right?
Yeah, and it is a business at the end of the day. So it's the same as the traditional kidnap and ransom type stuff. So if you go to a high-risk country, it is a business. If you get taken, they won't pay. And it's similar with digital extortion. It's the same thing. So at the moment, we are seeing insurers, where necessary, paying for ransoms. And it's usually on an indemnity basis, i.e. you as the business owner will pay the ransom, insurers will reimburse. But they will help you through that process, and it's a case of last resort. So insurers now have expert ransom negotiators who will liaise with whoever the threat actor is, and they'll make a decision on what's best course of action. But yeah, it's touch and go. I think whatever the US decide will likely the UK will follow.
Yeah, as is always the case. Just looking back on what we discussed earlier, where you mentioned about some insurers will actually do continuous scans of a domain and then notify them if there's any issue so they can resolve it, right?
Yep.
As businesses are moving towards having like live dashboards for updates for risks and all sorts of stuff that's going on around their kind of digital environment, do you see a potential shift for underwriters to take a more dynamic approach to their policies rather than it just being something which is done annually? Because if there's information which is being made available consistently or continuously, would that impact how underwriters kind of manage policies, rather than it being, we insured you on the 1st of January 2025, your renewal is 1st of January 2026, because a lot can happen in that time?
Yeah, I think there'll always be a renewal date, but I think there will be more touch points. So particularly again, it's not a phrase I quite like, but insurtechs, we're seeing them being more proactive in terms of touch points with clients. And again, we like to obviously have access to that as well, because we can then see what's happening throughout the policy period. But yeah, policies can change all the time, so risk changes all the time. So the more we can see insurers getting proactive with particularly cyber, where it's ever changing, ever evolving, the better it is for the policyholders. But yeah, I think there'll always be a renewal date, because I think wordings will change. You need to have a cut-off in terms of moving insurers potentially as well. So I don't think that changes, but you never know, obviously. But I think with automation and underwriting, I think that becomes more digitally led with human interaction at certain points. So we're seeing more now go through platforms than ever before, with referral points as required. And I think that'll continue to go that way.
Okay. And how do you see insurance for SMEs changing as more organizations start to become integrated and almost dependent on AI tooling and SaaS ecosystems, so that everything is on the cloud, right? Everything's heading that way. So has that kind of shifted things for you guys over the last 9 years?
I think it's just badged up as something differently right now. I think people have been using AI, whether they knew it or not, for a good few years anyway. Obviously, the prominence of ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, etc., have all taken to the mainstream of our day-to-day life now. For insurers, we are seeing more AI affirmative language in policies. So if, for example, in cyber and professional indemnity policies for tech and media risks, we're now seeing that being included, that you are covered if you're using AI tools, which is quite good. I think using AI tools, provided you're using them in the right way, isn't an issue, because it's just an efficiency type tool. If you're creating your own AI models and doing that rather than using off the shelf and bespoking a little bit, I think it's quite a varying risk. So it'll just be a case of us trying to navigate what you're doing as a business and presenting it in the right way to insurers. But yeah, I think until case law gets to a point of there's set standards of what you should and shouldn't do. We'll see what happens, but at this point we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's no kind of set guidance on what's right and wrong. There's general advice, but people just interpret it differently, right? And then just do what they want to do anyway.
Yeah, you'll see some businesses be very lackadaisical with it and just do what they want and have no controls over what the staff are doing, what tools they're using. Hopefully for the businesses we work with, there is more control in place. They've took careful consideration to what tools they are using and why, and they're using certain controls to monitor what staff are doing and then have a policy in place to adhere to, at least.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's something that we're seeing a lot now. Organizations implementing an AI policy and then the technical tools in order to enforce that.
And is that you promoting that to your clients, or is that them going, I need this?
It's a combination of both, really. The conversations usually, when we're talking about the risk log, have you considered AI as a risk? If not, then it should be. And then usually that leads to identified as a risk. What can you do about it? Policy, technical controls.
Yeah, but that's good. I mean, if we see clients with things like that in place, then it's only a good thing for sure.
Yeah, like I said, it shows like a level of maturity, right? If they're taking those kind of steps to consider the things that could go wrong.
I think good underwriting and good insurers will look at things like that and see that as a positive. I mentioned we try and avoid proposal forms, but where we have to, we might see questions around, have you got a policy like this in place in the future? At this stage, it's a little bit led by the underwriter because they might ask certain questions around AI. They might not. So it just depends on what day of the week it is, I think, what the risk is.
In the last 12 months, have there been any new questions that have kind of surfaced for you guys from underwriters?
Mainly around AI, I think. I think a lot of it's around content creation, though. So it's more what controls have you got in place to verify the outcomes before it's delivered to a client, for example, or what steps you taking to map the process for content creation using AI. So are you remembering what prompts you've done? Are you screen grabbing? Have you got controls in place to monitor all that stuff? Mainly because of an IP risk. For the data side of things, we're seeing biometric data being quite high hazard at the moment. And again, it's usually the case of if you've got sensitive data or US citizen data, they want to know a lot more around controls in place, how you're segregating it in your network. Is it encrypted? How are you transmitting it? Where are you transmitting it? Where's it held? All that stuff. So they're quite common questions now.
Okay, so in terms of, I guess, the life cycle of a customer, so when they typically sign up with an insurance policy, a lot of things can change. So in that time, if initially when they signed up, they had their question set, which was, are you using this? Are you using that? Do you do this? Do you do that? And the business has evolved over a 12-month period before the renewal. So initially they weren't engaging with US citizens. They weren't using AI tooling, et cetera, any of these kind of variables which were yes or no questions initially. If they fail to update yourselves or their underwriter, and then an incident unfolds and the root cause of that incident was something that they said no to, but later turns out that they actually do. Always gets me when I say that. How would that impact a claim?
Yeah, I mean, we're big advocates of saying get in touch with us. Even if you're unsure, just tell us, because what's the harm? So if you're going to do something differently, or you're trying something new, or you're going to a new market, new sector, new product, tell us, because what's the harm of an email? And I'll go, yeah, it's fine, you're covered, or let's just bounce it off insurers. But if you decide to do something completely different, so say you're a SaaS business doing booking software, and you decide, I'll tell you what, I could do a really good job at doing ticketing as well, or hospitality booking platform. Again, that's probably fine because it's a booking platform. If you're doing ticketing, it's quite different. So it's a case of, yeah, that might be a risk that you're not insured for that trade. So in the event of a claim, yes, insurers might go, we were aware of this, we didn't underwrite this risk, we're not going to cover this claim. So you've got to remember that insurance is an agreement, it's a contract, they're not your friend, they're there to fulfill a contract. So that if something is insured, they will pick it up and pay out or defend you or whatever the case is. But if you're not and you fall foul of whether it's a condition in the policy or do something differently to what you advised, then yeah, you're at risk of insurers invalidating that claim and rejecting it, which can happen. It's the same way as if you have home insurance and the requirement is that you've got an alarm and you don't have an alarm and you get broken into, then insurers probably aren't going to pay out for that claim. So it's the same way. We've got to be very clear that insurers aren't there to hold your hand through everything. It is fulfillment of a contract at the end of the day. And yes, we'll get the widest possible terms and the best coverage and the least onerous conditions for you. But at the end of the day, you've got to follow some rules.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's very important to make sure that as your business changes, they're communicating that to you guys and ultimately the insurer, because no one wants to be caught off guard in that situation.
No, exactly. We've had a client this week saying we're acquiring another business. We want to include it in our program. So again, changes like that, material changes to a business, just tell us, because we're there to advise and help you at that point.
So something like that, where a client acquires another business, what does that look like? Does it then just expand the scope of the coverage, or would it then potentially be a whole separate policy for the new business?
Depends on a lot of things. If it's the same sector and the same trade and you just bought a business to expand what you offer, then yeah, you can just most likely include it in a group program. Your policy gets a bit bigger, but there should be some cost efficiencies there, but you can centrally manage it. If you're acquiring in a different country, then it might be slightly different, where you'll do some stuff from the UK and some stuff elsewhere.
Nice.
So it can help advise in that process.
Okay. And in terms of RiskBox, what does the future look like for you guys? What's got anything on the horizon? Any planned changes over the sort of next 3, 5, and 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we want to continue to grow the business organically. So we're very proudly independent. We've never taken external funding. In our sector, there is a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and that happens regularly, which is the nature of it. For us, we want to continue to grow RiskBox, be proud of what we're growing. So we'll grow the team, we'll develop the team, and continue to sort of stay in our specialisms. We know what we're good at, and that's why we stay in those sectors, because we're very good at it. So it's just continue as we are, I suppose, is the best way to do it, but on hopefully a bigger scale.
Nice. Cool. All right, well, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.